If they set that android free, it will be the end of all of us! No!
Alright, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be exploring timelines and the parallel worlds found within the canon of Dragon Ball. Now, yes, I know, canon this and canon that. I hear that more than often. Oh, why does it matter? It's canon. There's different timelines and stuff, and we don't know what happened in those. I'm here to break the great news that if you would read the Dragon Ball Super manga, they actually pretty well explain timelines and the parallel world structure, how parallel worlds are created, and even how parallel worlds can create other parallel worlds and even be destroyed. Now, we're going to be diving into this right now. So, our first stop in the Dragon Ball Super manga, for those who have not read it for some reason, we actually have a very accurate description from Trunks' teacher on how time travel and parallel worlds actually work. She gives the example that there is a boy called Boy A who goes back in time and meets his mother as a child and shares red bean buns. However, his mother as a child chokes and dies. Well, now there is a branching timeline where his mom is dead, he never has, he doesn't exist, his mother and father never met, but when he goes back to his present, he still has that, even though he saw his mom die. This is because it has created a branching parallel world that is connected in a way to that event. Now, we learn that later in the series, we get stuff like the time rings, which explain that whenever an event in the past is changed, a parallel world time ring will appear. We know Gowasu used the time ring 400 years prior to taking on Zamasu as his apprentice, and then later it is shown that he is confused at why there is now 4 parallel world rings instead of just 1. We learn from Gowasu also that in Universe 12 they were the first sophisticated civilization to get time travel. They traveled back into history and changed something historic, which created the parallel world. And we learn here that it has to be something historic. There is no, just because you travel back in time, it's now a parallel world. You can travel back in time, and so long as you do not interact with in a way that would alter history, then the parallel world does not form. So you can go back and visit with a time machine, and nothing will happen. However, you go back and visit and say, kill your mother, like in the example the teacher gave, on accident, of course, then it creates that parallel world as that history that he has of him, her being his mother, is no longer going to occur. And we also get examples of this with Zamasu himself and Beerus later on, which I will dive into later. Alright, so right now, let us just focus on the time rings. We clearly see there is 4 green time rings, which are known as the parallel worlds. 1 silver, which is the ring for the main timeline. Now, within the box, we have the 4. Let's focus on that. 1 ring is created because of the time travel and changes caused by Universe 12. That was known to Gowasu 400 years before taking on Zamasu, and he is surprised to find that there is now 3 additional rings, which means that these rings are super recent, and the only explanation of that is simple. 1 additional ring is formed when Trunks goes back in time and kills Frieza, warning the Z Fighters of 17 and 18. Alright, so that's 1. So that's a +1 ring. Now you're wondering, where does the second ring come from that's additional? The second additional ring is actually caused by Cell, who goes back in time, and while he does stay dormant for a few years, when he awakens, he begins eating massive amounts of people, which creates the second time ring that's in addition. So Cell has created another parallel world right then and there. Well, after the Cell games and Trunks has been revived, he now has knowledge that in his future he's going to die from Cell. Well, because he now has this information and he goes back to his timeline, he actually ends up waiting on future Cell. So at this point, future Cell thought he could get the jump on, but was expected. And Trunks ends up killing future Cell, preventing future Cell from going back in time. This creates the third additional time ring, because he prevents that Cell from going back in time and continuing the loop, breaking the cycle and creating that fourth parallel world. So let's go over this. One green ring is caused by Universe 12's change in history. The second green ring is caused by Trunks killing Frieza and warning about the androids. The third green ring is caused by Cell becoming active in the past and eating civilization basically and becoming perfect. The fourth time ring that is parallel is created from future Trunks killing future Cell, preventing him from going back in time, which means what we have here is we have one unknown timeline that is Universe 12, one timeline where Trunks goes back in time, one timeline where Cell goes back in time, and then one timeline where Trunks prevents Cell from going back in time, meaning that there's at least one timeline where there's no Trunks and no Cell in it at all. The silver time ring is now the time ring that is supposed to be the main timeline, or at least the main timeline it exists within. So whoever wears that in that timeline can jump into the main timelines up and go up it, basically. You're not supposed to go back. It specifically said you can't use the time ring to go back, as it's against the law. So you have to have a time machine to go back. Time rings only go back to the present date when they were used after going to the future. Now, looking at this, we now know the four parallel worlds, and we know that the one time ring is the main timeline for where it exists. So, again, 5 rings. We later get information that Beerus, acting on information that he has attained from Goku and Co., erases Zamasu in the present. Now, Zamasu that took Goku's body is in the main timeline of Goku. And because that had happened in the future, killing Zamasu has now created another branching parallel world. So now there is 6 rings. Yet, after fighting Zamasu, Goku brings in future Xeno, who erases that timeline, shattering it, which in turn shatters that parallel world's time ring, putting it back down to the 5 total rings. Well, in addition to that, Trunks then discovers, through Pilaf's ingenuity, they can adjust their frequency and go forward to where his timeline used to be, to a point before it was erased, and re-establish it. However, there will be 2 Trunkses and 2 Mai's. And that being said, now brings us back to a total of 6 rings in that box. There will be 5 green and 1 silver ring. And what we know is that there is no timeline where GT, it's not GT, Super, End of Z, Dragon Ball Magic, or whatever else. It is literally an unknown Universe 12 timeline. We have the future timelines that were created from Trunks and Cell. The main timeline, the parallel main timeline, which is created by Beerus, and all that. There is none of those that go into GT or Heroes or any of that. Those are all, I guess you could say that those exist in a different plane of reality altogether. Not a parallel universe, because Dragon Ball has defined timelines, they have defined parallel worlds, they are defining dimensions kind of in the later arcs, and parallel, they've explained the multiverse. So we can't say it's an alternate universe. It's literally, it has to be in a sense an alternate dimension / reality that is completely disconnected from the mainline timeline. So just to recap here, so parallel worlds were only created when you go back in time and alter a historical event. And they will then create that parallel world where that historical event never happened or existed after you changed it. but there will still be a timeline where it did occur or didn't occur, depending on what you changed, I suppose. We also know that time rings don't go back in time. They can only go back into the present. Okay, they can go to the future and return back to the present in which they were used. And we also know that characters who have went to the future using a time ring, if they kill somebody in that future, that we know it does not create a parallel world because another time ring does not appear. That is probably due to the fact that when they return to the present, that future is not truly set in stone at all. So this is Protector Cross, bringing you and examining the canon rules on parallel worlds and timelines and how time travel affects things. I have one question for you all. What is the ideal timeline that you think would be fun to explore? Personally, I would really like to see the Universe 12 timeline and see how it played out, at least in the sense of what happens in Universe 12's history. Like, what did they change? I just gotta know, honestly. Like, did they accidentally kill somebody? Did they change evolution? Who knows? But anyway, this is Protector Cross signing off. Have a good day, a good night, and a good everything in between. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment below.